Welcome to another video from Dr. Lock. This is a training video on how to cut a key. This video has been split into 4 different sections to make it nice and easy, and they're going to be quite quick and just run over all the basics of key cutting. First of all, we're going to go over the introductory of key cutting, what a single and a double-sided key is, and then look at key bitting and spacing, the angles that you need to cut your key for it to work properly, how to match your key to your customer's key, and also how to find the reference to the key and what to do if you can't find a reference. Okay, so for key cutting we have to start from the very beginning, and first of all we have to identify the key that we have. Most keys have the exact same layout, and the terminology is used with various different keys as well. So as you can see in green, it's the key reference. This is a number, a code which appears on the head of the key, which allows you to identify that your key blank is the same as the customer's key blank. Often they can have different references for different manufacturers. So if you're using a Silka key, it's going to be different if it's an Ilko key. For this we use books to be able to convert it, but generally speaking, a lot of the time you can use a cheat chart and just have a series of common codes written down or printed out so you can compare one to the other to know you're talking about the same key. The next part of the key which you need to be able to identify is the head shape of the key. This is in purple on the left. This basically is just the shape of the key. It isn't, how do you say it? It isn't the be all and end all. Head shapes do change. You can have the same type of key with a larger head shape, a different shaped head shape, but it is a good reference. If the heads match, it's a good place to start. If they don't match, you can still use your key reference to identify it. So the head shape, and now we're moving on to the shoulder. The shoulder in blue is indicated on the top and the bottom of the key. You would be using the top one where the grooves are of the key, not so much the bottom one, but the bottom one can be used in certain situations. So that's the shoulder of the key, and that is where you line the key up on a single-sided key. The next part is the tip, just down there in orange. This is just for reference of how we refer to it. You've got the head, the shoulder, the tip, and most importantly you've got the key profile. Now the key profile is if you were looking at the key, looking down the side of it, so you could actually see the shape of it, like the cross section of it. That's what we call a key profile, and that's important when you are lining up a key to make sure that your key profile is the same. This is a visual check you would do, and it will allow you to see that you're actually going to have the same type of key, and it's going to be able to go into the lock. Care needs to be taken when lining up the key profile. There's a lot of different profiles that are only very slightly different. For an example, you could have a Lockwood key and you could have a quickset key, and they look almost identical, but the difference could be the thickness in that profile. So key profile is quite important when identifying your key. Okay, so single-sided keys are keys which have grooves, cuts on one side. The cuts basically appear only on the one side. That's a single-sided key. A double-sided key has cuts on both sides, which is a double-sided key, also known as a double-sided courtesy convenience key, because you can actually put the key in one way, take it out, flip it around and put it in the other way, and it'll still work. So the cuts on one side correspond to the other side, so you can put it in either way. So it's a convenient key. Single-sided key you can only put in one way, and the grooves are just on one side. To be able to cut a key well, you need to know a little bit more about keys. So we're going to take you through and tell you about key spacing and key bitting, also known as cuts. Basically, when you cut into a key and it creates a groove, this is known as a cut. In some countries they call it the bitting, other people call it the key grooves. So you can use whichever suits you best. These grooves go down in measurements. So how far that cut into that key is what's known as the bitting or the cut. Now the key spacing, for each pin inside the lock or disc there's spacing that each disc is located at. So in green you can see on this image here, this is your correct spacing, and this is dead center of each pin or disc on corresponding to the key. So you can see that they're evenly spaced, and this will give you a good idea of exactly what should be on a key. You should have evenly spaced, and you should have good depths. As long as those ones are all corresponding to the lock, then you'll be getting a good key. It's on some keys it'll be quite hard to identify your correct spacing, but most of the time when you're duplicating it's not necessary. But it is necessary when you are lining up a key and when you're selecting the correct key to know that your key is going to be big enough that you're going to be duplicating onto. For an example, you can have a 5-pin which will have 5 spacings, and then you'll have a key that looks identical which will have 6 spacings. So in a situation like that you would like to count your bitting or your grooves and make sure that your key blank is going to be long enough. So that's a little helpful tip on lining up your key. Okay, so key cutting angles. There's a few different types of key cutting angles, but I'm going to take you through the most common two. You can see them with the green tick, where you've got a nice valley or a V shape, or like a sort of a skateboarding ramp. The next one would be like a moon type of shape. This is all fine. The most important thing is that the pin can ride down the ramp, along the middle and back up again without getting snagged. So if you see the blue pins there indicated on the diagram, these pins are spring loaded pushing down, which means they need a good ramp to ride up and go down, just like skateboarding. If you see the one down on the end there, you can see that it's got walls on either side of the cut. What's happened there is the cut has gone straight into the key and been pulled straight back out, leaving 2 flat edges on that key. If you were to do that and not check it, what would happen is your key would go into the lock and jam up straight away, and you probably needed to destroy the lock to get the key out or drill it open. So big no-no. The most important thing is to make sure all your cuts are fluent. They all allow the pins to ride up and ride down, ride the ramp properly without getting snagged. If you do have a key which has been produced and it's got a cut like the one with the X, you then could easily take a file and change those ramps to accommodate the pins being able to go over, down the valley, up the valley and to the next one. So they do need to be fluent cuts. If they're not, the key will get jammed, and that's where a lot of people can run into trouble. So make sure you have a good look over your key after you've produced it, and make sure there is no sharp edges, and that all of those edges do allow some angle for that pin to go back up into the lock when going in and out of the lock. Okay, so matching your key. Your customer is going to give you a key and they're going to present it to you, and you then need to find a corresponding blank key to duplicate their key onto. There's a few ways of doing this. The first one is to look at the key reference, which is indicated in green. This corresponds to the actual key itself and allows you to know what type of key it is. It's just like a serial number, so to speak. So LW4 in this example, if you were to find another key blank with LW4, then you would know that you can just duplicate that onto that. Different brands have different key references, so you might need to use a reference chart to be able to identify one brand to the other. But that allows you to identify the correct key for the duplicating purpose. The next thing is to look at the key shape and the head shape. This can also be a good way to identify a key very quickly. It's not a 100% accurate way of doing it, but it does allow you about 30-40% of the job. You can actually match some keys up very quickly just by looking at the head shape. And when you've cut a few keys and you know the exact type of key it is, you just glance at the head shape and you know that you've got the right one. But when you're starting off, always compare the key profile, which is indicated on red, and also the key length, and also the key reference if you can. Check all of them. It'll help when you get started just to check all of them. It doesn't take long. Check your reference. Can you match it? Good. If you can't, move on. Check your length, check your profile, head shape and key shape. These things will allow you to identify which key blank you need from your selection to be able to duplicate the customer's key. As an introduction to key cutting, a lot of people wonder whether or not they can just pick up a key machine, put it in their shop and start making money. A lot of people do that, but they don't actually have the resources or haven't had any training to do so, and that's where you can make mistakes and it can cost you money. First of all, you're best off starting with a good key cutting machine. The more you spend, the better you get. It's like anything. You're going to get better cutters, better handles, more ergonomic design, so it's going to be more comfortable. High-speed cutters, cut more keys, cutters that don't go blunt, handles that are easy to grab, semi-automatic lever operation, so you can cut the keys faster, all things like this. So basically, yes, you can buy a key cutting machine, and yes, you can start cutting keys straight away. This video was designed to be able to, for somebody to watch a couple of minutes worth of video and then start being able to produce keys in a shop environment and actually make money from it.